The cutthroat lawyer and the imperial decree. Clack. The porcelain shattered the suffocating silence of the grand hall. Lin Ze, formerly Elias Vance, senior partner at Manhattan's most ruthless corporate law firm, slammed a teacup onto the polished mahogany table, looking dead into the icy eyes of the emperor. "Your Majesty," he said, his voice ringing with the clarity of a tolling bell. "According to Imperial Law Section 4, Article 12, executing a concubine of the inner court without a formal tribunal and presented evidence is a direct violation of your own founding treaty. Tell me, are you a ruler or a hypocrite?" Gasps echoed through the cavernous hall. Eunuchs dropped to their knees in terror. The imperial guards instinctively drew their blades, the metallic whisper of steel echoing against the gold leaf pillars. No one spoke to Emperor Zhao Qiyan like that. To do so was to invite 1,000 cuts. But Lin Ze didn't flinch. He stood tall despite the bruised, frail body he currently inhabited. Just 3 hours ago, Elias Vance had suffered a massive heart attack after winning a grueling 72-hour corporate merger. When he opened his eyes, he wasn't in a hospital. He was in a damp dungeon, shoved into the weak, trembling body of Lin Ze, a low-ranking male concubine. The memories had flooded his mind in a dizzying rush. Lin Ze was being framed for poisoning the Empress's morning lotus tea with arsenic. The original owner of the body had wept, begged, and ultimately died of fright before the executioner even arrived. Elias, however, did not weep. He didn't beg. He was a lawyer. And this court was just another boardroom full of hostile shareholders waiting to be dismantled. Emperor Zhao Qiyan raised a single elegant hand. The guards froze. The emperor leaned forward on his dragon throne, resting his chin on his knuckles, his dark eyes, usually deadened by the endless boredom of sycophants and yes-men, sparked with a dangerous amusement. "A hypocrite," the emperor mused, his voice a low, velvet purr that made the surrounding ministers tremble. "You stand accused of high treason, Lin Ze. The Empress lies in a coma. The penalty is death by dismemberment, yet you demand a tribunal?" "I demand due process," Lin Ze shot back, smoothing the front of his soiled silk robes as if it were a bespoke Armani suit. "If you execute me now, you establish a precedent that the crown rules by whim, not by law. If the law is meaningless, your decrees are meaningless. I am acting as my own defense counsel. Bring out your so-called evidence." Minister Wu, the corpulent head of the inner court, stepped forward, his face purple with outrage. "Insolence! The evidence is absolute. Eunuch Gao saw you lingering by the imperial kitchens at the hour of the rabbit, and the silver needle turned black when dipped into the Empress's cup. Ah, circumstantial proximity and a rudimentary chemical reaction," Lin Ze sneered, pacing in front of the mahogany table. He looked at Minister Wu with the pity of a shark looking at a minnow. "Let us cross-examine, shall we? Bring Eunuch Gao forward." Trembling, the young eunuch was shoved to the center of the room. "Eunuch Gao!" Lin Ze said, his voice dropping to a calm, clinical register that had shredded Fortune 500 CEOs on the witness stand. "You saw me at the hour of the rabbit. What was I wearing?" A blue silk robe, Master Lin," the eunuch stammered. "Fascinating." Lin Ze turned to the emperor. "Your Majesty, imperial laundry records will show that my pavilion only receives its cleaned garments at the hour of the dragon. Furthermore, the gate logs to the inner court are locked until dawn. It is physically impossible for me to have been in the kitchen at that hour unless I possess the ability to walk through walls." Minister Wu sneered. "A minor discrepancy. You bribed a guard." "Objection. Speculation without proof," Lin Ze snapped automatically, pointing a sharp finger at Wu. "But let's address the poison. Arsenic. Minister Wu, you claim the silver needle turned black." "It did, before the eyes of the entire court." "Silver tarnishes in the presence of sulfur, Minister, not arsenic," Lin Ze said, his lips curling into a predatory smile. The modern knowledge of forensic chemistry was a beautiful thing. The Empress's morning tea contains boiled egg whites and lotus root, both high in sulfur. The needle would have turned black, regardless of poison. If the tea was spiked with arsenic, the Empress would have exhibited severe vomiting and abdominal pain within 30 minutes. But the physician's report, which I skimmed while your guards were dragging me here, states she simply fell asleep and slipped into a coma. The hall was dead silent. The emperor sat up straighter, his eyes locked onto Lin Ze, utterly captivated by the venomous, razor-sharp intellect radiating from the previously unremarkable concubine. "What are you implying, Lin Ze?" the emperor asked softly. "I am not implying anything, Your Majesty. I am stating a fact. The Empress wasn't poisoned with arsenic. She was dosed with dreamless poppy, a rare sedative. And who in this court recently received a tribute of dreamless poppy from the southern provinces?" Lin Ze pivoted on his heel, his eyes locking onto a pale, sweating figure standing in the shadows of the officials. "Minister Wu." The minister recoiled as if struck. "Lies! Slander! Your Majesty, he speaks treason." "Do I?" Lin Ze walked right up to the sputtering minister, invading his personal space. "A search of your estates will yield the poppy. Furthermore, your ledger will show you've been shorting the grain tax, a crime the Empress was investigating. You framed the weakest, most expendable person in the harem to cover your tracks. A sloppy, pathetic strategy." Lin Ze turned his back on the hyperventilating minister and looked up at the throne. "The defense rests." For a long, agonizing moment, the only sound in the grand hall was the frantic gasping of Minister Wu. Then a new sound emerged. Slow, measured clapping. Emperor Zhao Qiyan was applauding. A genuine chilling smile graced his lips. He had spent his entire reign surrounded by beautiful, boring flowers. He had never encountered a poisonous thorn quite like this. "Imperial guards," the emperor commanded, his eyes never leaving Lin Ze's face. "Search Minister Wu's estate. If what Lin Ze says is true, execute Wu's entire bloodline." Minister Wu screamed as he was dragged away, his protests fading down the long corridors. The emperor stood and descended the jade steps of the dais, approaching Lin Ze. He towered over the smaller man, but Lin Ze met his gaze without a hint of submission. "You are not the weeping boy I was told about," Zhao Qiyan murmured, examining Lin Ze as if he were a priceless artifact. "You possess a terrifying mind." "I am simply a man who understands the rules of the game, Your Majesty," Lin Ze replied evenly. "A concubine's place is in the harem," the emperor said, leaning in close enough that Lin Ze could smell sandalwood and cold steel. "But I think keeping you confined to a pavilion would be a tragic waste of a weapon." "I don't play the lute and I don't pour tea," Lin Ze warned, his lawyer's instincts already negotiating the terms of his new reality. "Good," Emperor Zhao Qiyan whispered, his smile deepening into something dark and profoundly intrigued. "Tomorrow you will report to the Ministry of Justice, and tonight you will dine with me. We have much to discuss." Lin Ze bowed, a perfunctory, calculating dip of his head. He had survived the motion to dismiss. Now it was time to take over the firm, the Ministry of Justice, a hostile takeover. The Ministry of Justice was, in Elias Vance's professional opinion, a bureaucratic dumpster fire. When Lin Ze arrived the morning after his near execution, he found a sprawling complex of dusty archives, unfiled scrolls, and magistrates who spent more time drinking plum wine than reviewing case law. They looked at the emperor's new appointee, a male concubine known for his fragile constitution, with barely concealed contempt. Lin Ze didn't demand their respect, he simply restructured them. Within 48 hours, the former corporate shark had turned the ancient ministry into a high-functioning, terrifyingly efficient firm. He introduced concepts that made the elderly magistrates weep into their inkwells. Lin Ze declared, "I don't care about your noble lineages or which uncle bought you this posting," Lin Ze announced to the assembled officials on his third day, casually tossing a stack of backlog petitions onto a desk. "You are now on billable hours. If a case sits on your desk for more than 3 days, you will be fired. If I catch you accepting a bribe, I won't just fire you, I will audit your entire ancestral tree." He wasn't a concubine anymore. He was the managing partner, and his first major target was the Ministry of Revenue, the audit of the century. 2 weeks later, the Grand Hall was packed for the bi-monthly Imperial Assembly. Lord Chancellor Shen, an untouchable aristocrat whose faction controlled the empire's finances, was delivering a long, tearful plea to Emperor Zhao Qiyan regarding a tragic shortfall in the Northern Army's supply budget. Shen blamed poor harvests and greedy merchants. The emperor sat on his throne, his chin resting on his hand, looking profoundly bored. His eyes cut to the side, where Lin Ze stood holding a thick stack of bound paper, a modern ledger he had commissioned. Lord Shen, Lin Ze interrupted, his voice cutting through the old man's theatrics like a scalpel. You claim the shortfall is due to grain prices. Yet a brief audit of your ministry's provincial reports reveals a fascinating anomaly. Shen scoffed, his silk robes rustling indignantly. A harem boy plays at arithmetic. Your Majesty, are we to be lectured by a bed warmer? The Emperor's eyes darkened, but before he could signal the guards to remove Shen's tongue, Lin Ze laughed. It was a cold corporate chuckle. A bed warmer who can read a balance sheet, Chancellor? Lin Ze replied, stepping into the center of the hall. He signaled to two sweating clerks who unrolled a massive parchment chart for the entire court to see. Lin Ze loudly declared, for all those who cannot read this, is the discrepancy analysis of the Northern Province grain requisitions. It outlines a massive financial fraud, showing the difference between the money the Imperial Treasury provided and the actual value of the grain that was bought over 3 seasons. In the spring quarter, the Empire sent 450,000 taels to buy grain. However, only 200,000 taels worth of grain was actually purchased, which left 250,000 taels missing or unaccounted for. Similarly, in summer quarter, the Empire increased the funds to 500,000 taels, but even less grain was bought, only 150,000 taels worth. This resulted in 350,000 taels mysteriously disappearing. Lastly, in the autumn quarter, the Empire sent 600,000 taels, yet only a mere 100,000 taels was actually spent on grain. This left a massive deficit of 500,000 taels completely unaccounted for. As you can see, Lin Ze stated, tapping the final column, over 1 million taels of silver vanished between the Imperial Treasury and the northern borders in a single year. Furthermore, I cross-referenced the transport logs. The greedy merchants you blamed are all shell companies registered under the maiden names of your 3 concubines. The blood drained from Lord Chancellor Shen's face. The court erupted into panicked whispers. You speak treason! Shen shrieked, pointing a trembling finger. This is a fabrication! It is a forensic audit, Lin Ze corrected smoothly. I also took the liberty of dispatching the Emperor's shadow guards to your country estate last night. They discovered vaults containing exactly 1 million taels of unminted silver. Lin Ze looked up at the throne. Your Majesty, I recommend immediate asset forfeiture, followed by capital punishment for grand larceny and treason. Emperor Zhao Qiyan looked from the chart to the hyperventilating chancellor, and finally to Lin Ze. The Emperor's lips curled into a slow, devastatingly handsome smile. The sheer, unapologetic competence radiating from the smaller man was the most intoxicating thing Zhao Qiyan had ever witnessed. The motion is granted, the Emperor decreed softly. Execute Shen, seize his assets. And Lin Ze? Yes, Your Majesty. Promote yourself to Chief Imperial Censor. The Emperor's favorite, an aggressive merger. That evening, the Imperial study was quiet, bathed in the heavy, warm glow of amber lanterns. Outside, the palace slept, but inside, a different kind of war was being waged. Lin Ze sat across from Emperor Zhao Qiyan at a low mahogany table, a sprawling map of the empire pressed flat between them. There were no eunuchs hovering in the shadows, no guards standing at attention. There was only the ruler of the known world and the man who was systematically dismantling his government. The Ministry of Public Works is next, Lin Ze said, tapping a polished fingernail against the southern river provinces on the map. They've been overbilling the crown for the flood canals by at least 40%. It's sloppy. I'll have their ledgers seized by dawn. Zhao Qiyan didn't look at the map. His dark, heavy gaze was fixed entirely on Lin Ze. The Emperor wore only a loose inner robe of dark silk, the collar falling open to reveal the hard, scarred musculature of a man who had conquered kingdoms before he ever sat on a throne. He reached across the table, his long, calloused fingers wrapping around the delicate porcelain wine pitcher. He poured a cup of warmed plum wine and pushed it slowly toward Lin Ze. It was an unprecedented, intimate gesture. Emperors did not serve subjects. My court is terrified of you, Zhao Qiyan murmured, the low, velvet timbre of his voice vibrating in the quiet room. They call you the Iron Viper. They whisper that you have cast a dark spell on me to monopolize my favor. Lin Ze picked up the cup, his dark eyes meeting the Emperor's over the rim. He didn't bow. He didn't flinch. Are they wrong? From a purely administrative standpoint, I am your best asset. I clean your house, I balance your treasury, and I remove your pests. An asset, the emperor repeated. The word sounded like a purr. Zhao Qiyan stood, rounding the low table with the predatory grace of a snow leopard. He didn't stop until he was standing directly behind Lin Ze. The heat radiating from the emperor's body was a physical weight. Lin Ze went perfectly still as Zhao Qiyan leaned down, bracing both hands on the table, trapping Lin Ze between his arms. The scent of sandalwood, sharp ink, and pure, intoxicating male power surrounded the former lawyer. "You think like a strategist, Lin Ze," the emperor whispered, his lips brushing the shell of Lin Ze's ear. "But you forget you are still in a concubine's body." "A technicality," Lin Ze replied, though his pulse ticked a fraction faster. He refused to break his composure. "My mind is what you value." "I value all of you," Zhao Qiyan corrected smoothly. The emperor's large hand slid from the table, tracing the line of Lin Ze's spine through layers of silk. The touch was agonizingly slow, a deliberate claim of ownership that sent a shiver straight to Lin Ze's core. When Zhao Qian's fingers reached the nape of Lin Ze's neck, they tangled in his long, unbound hair, gripping tight and forcing Lin Ze to tilt his head back. Their eyes met upside down. The cold amusement in the emperor's gaze was gone, replaced by a dark, consuming hunger. "I have spent my life surrounded by beautiful, hollow things," Zhao Qiyan said, his voice dropping to a gravelly rasp. "They bow, they tremble, they bore me to death. But you look at me like I am just another problem for you to solve." "And how are we going to solve this one, Your Majesty?" Lin Ze challenged, his breath hitching slightly as the emperor's thumb traced his lower lip, parting it. "With an aggressive takeover." Zhao Qiyan crushed his mouth against Lin Ze's. It wasn't a gentle kiss. It was a collision. The emperor tasted of rich wine and ruthless demand. Lin Ze's lawyer instincts flared. Never surrender the high ground, and instead of melting into the touch, he grabbed the lapels of the emperor's silk robe, pulling the larger man down harder, answering the brutal kiss with a fierce, biting intensity of his own. Zhao Qiyan groaned, a feral sound of pure approval. He hauled Lin Ze up by the waist, scattering the ancient maps and ledgers as he pinned the smaller man to the edge of the mahogany desk. The terms of engagement. The emperor held absolute physical dominance, his heavy thighs pressing between Lin Ze's legs, forcing them apart. Lin Ze held absolute psychological dominance, his sharp nails digging into the emperor's shoulders, refusing to break the kiss until Zhao Qiyan was breathless. When they finally broke apart, both men were panting in the dim light. Zhao Qian's eyes were black with lust, his chest heaving. He reached into his robes and pulled out a solid black jade token, carved with a five-clawed dragon. He pressed it into the palm of Lin Ze's hand, folding the lawyer's fingers over the cold stone. "The Emperor's proxy," Zhao Qiyan rasped, leaning in to press open-mouthed kisses down the long, exposed column of Lin Ze's neck. "It grants you the authority to bypass the six ministries. You can execute anyone, do anything, without my prior approval." Lin Ze gasped as the emperor's teeth scraped lightly against his collarbone. In his old life, this token was total executive control, a blank check. But his modern mind was suddenly struggling to formulate a coherent sentence under the onslaught of the emperor's touch. "You give me this," Lin Ze breathed out, gripping the emperor's hair to hold his head in place, forcing Zhao Qiyan to look up at him, "and I will tear your corrupt court down to the studs." "Burn it all down," the emperor whispered, his hands sliding under the silk of Lin Ze's robes, finding bare heated skin. "As long as you belong to me when the smoke clears." "I don't belong to anyone," Lin Ze fired back, his corporate stubbornness flaring even as his body trembled under the emperor's expert touch. "Consider this a mutually beneficial partnership." Zhao Qiyan let out a dark, wicked laugh. With one effortless motion, he swept Lin Ze off the desk, carrying him toward the inner bedchambers. "Call it whatever you like, my iron viper," the emperor murmured, kicking the heavy wooden doors open. "But tonight, you are not drafting laws. You are submitting to mine." In the courtroom, Lin Ze was the untouchable judge. But in the shadowed intimacy of the dragon bed, he was learning the exquisite art of negotiation. The Emperor threw Lin Ze onto the massive bed, following him down immediately. Layers of silk were stripped away, discarded onto the floor like meaningless treaties. Lin Ze's body was slender, still bearing the faint marks of his dungeon imprisonment, but Zhao Qiyan worshipped every inch of him with an intensity that bordered on reverence. Every touch was a question, every gasp was an answer. When the Emperor's mouth trailed lower, burning a path down Lin Ze's stomach, the brilliant lawyer finally lost his ability to articulate. Lin Ze arched off the mattress, his hands tangling in the silk sheets, his sharp mind dissolving into white-hot static. For the first time in 2 lifetimes, Elias Vance had no argument, no objection, and absolutely no desire to be anywhere else. "Tell me," Zhao Qiyan commanded, his breath hot against Lin Ze's skin, holding him right on the edge of breaking. "Who rules this court?" Lin Ze dragged his eyes open, looking at the lethal, magnificent man hovering above him. A slow, venomous, and thoroughly satisfied smile spread across his face. "We do," Lin Ze whispered. Zhao Qian's eyes flared, and with a hungry growl, he leaned down to seal the partnership. The final verdict, a total monopoly. The cleanup of the Zhao Empire did not happen overnight, but to the terrified officials of the inner and outer courts, it felt like a lightning, fast and destructive. Armed with the Emperor's Black Jade proxy token and an intellect honed by decades of cutthroat New York litigation, Lin Ze treated the ancient government like a bloated, failing corporation. He didn't just trim the fat, he amputated the gangrene. Within 6 months, the Iron Viper had executed a flawless, hostile takeover. The Ministry of Public Works, audited and dismantled. The Military Procurement Division, restructured. The Imperial Tax Code, rewritten. But there was still one loose end hanging over the capital, the Empress. The golden parachute. On the first day of spring, the Empress finally awoke from her poppy-induced coma. When she opened her eyes in the Grand Phoenix Pavilion, she did not see her treacherous ladies-in-waiting or the hovering imperial physicians. Sitting elegantly by her bedside, sipping a cup of fine Longjing tea, was the man who was supposed to have been executed for her murder. "You're awake," Lin Ze noted, his voice calm and professional. He set the teacup down. "Good. We have terms to discuss." The Empress, pale and disoriented, stared at the striking young man wearing the dark crimson robes of the Grand Chancellor, a rank Lin Ze had practically invented for himself. "You, Lin Ze, you are alive. My tea was laced with dreamless poppy by Minister Wu to cover up a massive grain tax fraud you were getting too close to uncovering," Lin Ze supplied smoothly. "Wu is dead. His faction is eradicated. Your name is cleared, and the Empire is entirely solvent." The Empress blinked, her mind struggling to catch up. "The Emperor? Where is His Majesty?" "Running the morning assembly," Lin Ze replied. He leaned forward, resting his elbows on his knees, slipping into his most persuasive negotiator persona. "Your Grace, you are a highly intelligent woman. You survived a court that wanted you dead, but your political backing is gone. If you stay, you will spend the rest of your life fighting off new plots, new poisons, and the crushing boredom of the harem." "What are you proposing?" she asked warily. "A golden parachute," Lin Ze smiled. "An early retirement. In exchange for a voluntary amicable annulment of your imperial marriage, citing your frail health and desire for spiritual retreat, I will grant you the deed to the most lavish estate in the southern provinces. A massive annual stipend, absolute freedom, and a private guard. No more backstabbing. No more cold palace walls. You get to live in luxury, entirely on your own terms." The Empress looked at the young man, realizing with a cold shock that he wasn't asking. He was offering her the best out she would ever get. She looked at the deed he slid across the table, then up into his sharp, unforgiving eyes. "You want him all to yourself," she realized, a faint, breathless laugh escaping her lips. "You want the throne." "I have no interest in sitting on a chair all day," Lin Ze corrected, standing up and smoothing his robes. "I just want absolute control of the board." 3 days later, the Empress officially retired to the south. The position of Empress was left vacant. No official dared to petition the Emperor to fill it. The ultimate face slap, co-chairs of the board. 1 year after Elias Vance opened his eyes in a damp dungeon, He stood at the very apex of the world. The grand hall was utterly silent as the emperor's edict was read aloud. Lin Ze stood at the front of the assembly, not on the floor with the other ministers, but on the first tier of the jade dais, mere steps from the dragon throne. Therefore, by imperial decree, Lin Ze is elevated beyond the 6 ministries. He shall bear the title of imperial regent, answering only to the crown, his words carrying the weight of the emperor himself. The collective inner monologue of the court was a scream of pure terror, but outwardly every single official dropped to their knees and touched their foreheads to the marble floor. Long live the emperor! Long live the imperial regent! Lin Ze looked down at the sea of subservient heads. There was no more framing, no more snide remarks about harem boys or bed warmers. He had out-litigated, outmaneuvered, and utterly dominated the most dangerous men in the empire. Emperor Zhao Qiyan dismissed the court with a wave of his hand. Once the massive doors closed, sealing them alone in the cavernous hall, the emperor descended the final steps of the dais. Zhao Qiyan was a terrifying vision of martial power in his black and gold dragon robes, but when he looked at Lin Ze, the coldness in his eyes melted into a profound, possessive heat. Imperial Regent, Zhao Qiyan mused, stepping into Lin Ze's personal space and wrapping a heavy, muscular arm around his waist, pulling him flush against his chest. You've completely monopolized my government. I streamlined it, Lin Ze corrected, tilting his head back to meet the emperor's intense gaze, his hands naturally coming up to rest on Zhao Qian's broad shoulders. We are currently running at a 50% higher profit margin than your grandfather's era. You're welcome. Zhao Qiyan let out a low, rumbling laugh, the sound vibrating against Lin Ze's chest. He leaned down, capturing Lin Ze's lips in a slow, deeply sensual kiss that tasted of power, absolute trust, and a fiery, undeniable devotion. Lin Ze leaned into it, his lawyer's armor melting away, leaving only the man who had found his perfect equal. You tore my court down to the studs just as you promised, Zhao Qiyan whispered against his mouth, his thumb tracing the sharp curve of Lin Ze's jaw. And you rebuilt it around us. It's called a merger, Your Majesty, Lin Ze smirked, his dark eyes flashing with brilliant, unyielding light. And I'd say our partnership is proving to be highly lucrative. Zhao Qiyan smiled, sweeping Lin Ze off his feet and carrying his imperial regent toward the inner sanctum of the palace, leaving the paperwork and the rest of the world behind. The Iron Viper had won his final case, and the verdict was absolute.